Thank you so much. I'll try to be quick. I have a lot of slides. All right, so I'm going to talk about the future and the two S's of design. Pun intended, and you should totally follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All right, so show of hands. Raise your hand if this is your first OPO.design. Trick question. It's the first. All right, I saw a couple of posers didn't raise their hands. Come on, guys. All right, so now for real. Who in here has a background in software development? All right, a lot of people. What about the background in design? All right, okay. It's about to double. Okay, so what is design? Is it art? UI designer might say it's an interface. A UX designer might say it's a user story mapping. A furniture designer might say it's a very comfortable chair. It really depends. Then who is a designer? I've mentioned multiple types. A lot of new types of creators or creatives would not be called so not long ago. And in my perspective and my experience, technology has been an enabler. And again, I'm talking about my experience. I really like this quote by Peter Thiel, is founder of LinkedIn, founder of PayPal, investor in Facebook, and a bunch of other companies. So it's true that every entrepreneur is first and foremost a designer. I really like this one. I truly agree with that, and that's something that I've come to learn through my experience. This guy wrote a great book, 0 to 1. I totally recommend that you guys read it. And this guy is a Trump supporter, so I wonder what he's designing there. This talk, I'm going to talk again about the future and the two S's of design. These guys right there, alien, clearly. So the future. If we're going to talk about the future, we definitely need to start where it started in the past. And for me, it started as a web designer / webmaster. Remember that when putting a counter on your homepage was cool and a thing. So back then, I used to call myself all sorts of things, but mainly a web designer and a webmaster. I did not really understand what was the difference. My first site was a Pokemon website, and it's just so good that the screenshots have gone missing. And for the Pokemon fans out there, there's a missing no reference there, maybe you guys know. Through this stage, I was mainly doing pet projects, still fun, well, a lot of fun, and a great way to learn. Then I started doing some freelance work for a few clients. I was helping out everyone. I was young. Most people did not know their way around the computer, so it was great for me. Lots of opportunities. Then came college and engineering. After a few years, can read it, sort of. So the creative engineer, that's what it says. Towards the end of my course, and even before finishing my engineering degree, I was invited to join award-winning studio, TriWorks. Maybe you guys remember it. And this was a great chance for me to deepen my knowledge about design and software. I was mainly doing Flash, as you can notice. Then came a great opportunity for me becoming Chief Technical Officer of a well-known project, Boom. Maybe you guys know about it. As CTO, I was able to direct design, direct engineering, direct marketing, HR, all sorts of things. It really broadened my experience managing a company. And throughout that stage, I started to really understand how being a designer and being so horizontal and at the same time vertical was so good for me, because I was able to pinpoint all sorts of opportunities and all sorts of threats in whatever I was doing. And this essentially prepared me to become, and this is going to sound cheesy, become a sort of a Renaissance man. This is when I started Moxie with a couple of guys in here. One of them, the other is not here today, unfortunately. It was a chance for me to combine all past experience into a business and designing a business. It gave me the opportunity to exercise everything from creativity to communication to engineering, and this is a first actually. You might not be able to see it too. Yeah, it's too light. Sorry about that. So this is a first. It's actually a website we're building right now for our company. The team did an amazing job, and if you could see it, you could see that it's amazing. Anyway, this has been a great experience combining all the fields and really finding better designs that are effective and efficient in building a future. Another great quote I like about Peter Thiel is the greatest thing that Jobs designed was his business, and I fully agree with that. If you look at every iDevice, MacBook, whatever, you can really feel how obsessed Jobs was with details, but even though he was obsessed about that, and those products are really amazing. What's really amazing is that you see all sorts of companies doing really amazing products, and they still don't stick. So what was really genius of him was how he designed the business. So it's clear that design plays a central role, or it should be, and especially in determining the future, for real this time. Okay, so this is one of, and I'm talking about my experience. Of course, I'm going to focus a bit on technology. And this is one of the fields in which we have the chance of imagining something and creating it ourselves. Or we might just inspire others to create it with us, and with just scrap money, in the end, you get a product out of it, and you're able to launch it, maybe build a business that sticks. And in order to do that, and when you're working with other people, you definitely need to find some common ground, and I believe design is that common ground. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. What does your future look like? And think about it for a bit. You don't have to answer, but really think about it. How do you imagine your ideal future, let's say, in 5 years? How do you plan on getting there right now? Have you thought it through? Are you doing what you need to be doing to get to that future? Where are you? And does that involve other people? Chances are it does. You probably need to solve a lot of problems on one side, but you definitely need to convince a lot of people about something, probably. Looks like you should design for that future, all right? Which takes us to the 2 S's of design. Again, this is just based on my experience. I'm not saying that I'm a mastermind and everything I do just works. But so far, this is like a set of tools and lessons that I've learned through my experience. I apply these lessons at Moxie. And let me take you to the first S, solving. All right, solving is pretty simple. I think everyone understands. We're talking about understanding a problem and finding a solution. So I'm going to show you a set of tips. The first one is definitely going to get me kicked out of here, which is art is not design, or at least it's different. So kind of. And what I mean about this is it's very easy when you are designing something to get emotional about it and take it personal when someone says, oh, I really don't believe this works, or I really prefer it that way, or whatever. They give you feedback. When you get emotional about your work, it can be a good thing if you are if you control those emotions, but if you lose control, you also lose sight of what you're trying to do, and it starts to become more of an exercise of the ego and less about finding a good solution. So towards that effort, definitely look to be challenged. As designers, every time you need to tackle a new project, a new problem, you often start by studying the domain, unless that's something that you're already very comfortable with. So I'm guessing most of you have designed some level of e-commerce. So that's probably very, very familiar to most of you. But maybe it's not. So let's say you're tackling a new project about, I don't know, it's all the rage right now. It's a blockchain-y thingy, whatever. So you probably are not very knowledgeable about blockchain. So you first start by learning what's blockchain, what are people doing with blockchain, what can I do with blockchain. So that's important. But in the end, and because we don't have all the time in the world to study that domain, we're not exactly experts about that topic. So you should probably instrument yourself with the people around you, because chances are you are working with very smart people who can really share something with you and help you get to whatever you're trying to go. This is a very, very cheap way of doing things. It's very expensive trying to do it all on your own. Next, definitely, more than solving problems, you should start designing solutions. I'm sure most of you do that, but every now and then we get caught up in something. I like to use this example. Engineering found a problem with the performance, and let's improve this because this will be so much better for the user. We've spent 2 weeks or 1 month improving X, and now it takes just 5 milliseconds instead of 100 milliseconds. That was probably not the goal at all. As designers, you know that timing is very important. Hey, and was that even an issue? So that was probably something that should have been discussed as a team, because the engineering spent a lot of time doing something which for design was not desirable at all. You should not have done that. I had a bunch of other issues that I needed you to tackle before tackling that technical issue of performance. That, again, that was mainly an exercise of the ego. So this leads us to sharing the basics. You're stuck with the team if you're working in a team. So you might as well just take the time and share what you feel are the basics for that team to function. That will help you have a unified language. Everyone gets a better understanding of the solution rationale. So often, and taking my experience from engineering, often I would work with people who would not explain to me why they were doing a solution in a certain way. They would just say to me, okay, don't think about it, just do it the way I'm telling you. What gives? What the hell? Am I that dumb that I cannot understand what the problem is and how you solved it and why you solved it that way? This sucks. This sucks for everyone. You also don't, I'm sure you don't like when people say that to you as well. Everyone likes to be involved. Everyone likes to understand. And when people understand each other, they work better together. And ultimately, this is actually a very useful situation in which you start to sort of create safety nets in which you know how it is. You're doing a project, you're rushing through it often, you need to deliver something today, whatever. If you don't create a safety net, or if the guys that are implementing whatever we are designing, if they don't understand the basics, they will look at a problem and they'll implement that way with a problem. They will not catch that problem. If we educate the people around us for those basic things, it's a safety net. It allows for you to be quicker, a bit less safe about the work that you're doing, because you know that the people on the other side will understand what you meant, and they will either raise the issue with you or they will fix it for you. All right, and all of this does not mean design by committee. I want to be clear. For those of you who are not familiar with the concept of design by committee, it's also known as the indifference generator machine. It's a beautiful device. The indifference generator machine. It allows us to create solutions and products for which no one cares. It's amazing. So on one hand, you had what you needed, and this is what the committee agreed upon. It's amazing. So you have someone's kid giving the head, engineering gave the throat, and you have the art direct and the intern, and what the fuck? I don't know. It's amazing. So essentially, a camel is a horse designed by a committee. I'm not saying that I defend that. You definitely need someone to be accountable and in charge of steering the vision. But that doesn't also mean that you have to go all the way to the other side and have one person working alone, not talking to everyone else, who's sort of a genius or a god on earth that's delivering everything that everyone needs. What I defend is what's called transversal design. And transversal design is something that we use at Moxie. It's essentially a way of working in which you have all sorts of people that are involved in a project. They come in with different horizons, often opposite desires. So let's say you have a project, that project has 1 month for execution. You have, let's say, the designer designing something, and wow, this is amazing, and it delivers to engineering. Engineering looks at it, wow, this is amazing. I'll take 2 months to develop this. Doesn't work. So when you have transversal design, essentially you put those people together, and they need to find the right balance, the best balance that they can find. So essentially you have the designers coming up with solutions. You have the team itself might be coming up with solutions, and both will be able to find potential problems. So this cannot be done because it takes too much time, or this will not work because there's no technology, or it's too expensive for that to work. And on the other side, you can also find potential opportunities. As designers, and as broad and as deep as we are in the knowledge that we have, again, we're not experts on everything in life. And that means that every now and then, someone will be able to say, hey, why don't we do this like that? And everyone's like, what's that? This is an opportunity to do something else that alone the designer would not be able to do. You have, I don't know, the marketeer, the engineer, the intern from the other slide, saying something, and suddenly you find a solution that was just not possible in the beginning because you were not using the collective brain. So, summing it up, as designers, what we do is not rocket science. It's actually much, much more complicated. Science is objective. You have extensive studies in order to be objective. The world we live in is not like that. It's a world of numbers, of money. So we cannot really afford being exhaustive and trying every possible way in order to find the best way. So what we have is a balance of science or pseudoscience or whatever, experience, and from that we create heuristics. Also, and this is a great one, great source of happiness, the horizon keeps changing. So we have to keep evolving, which leads us to the second S. All right, so you've done the work, you're feeling pretty good about the results, you're feeling really confident. So the work should just speak for itself, right? Wrong. Not really. This has two problems. It assumes that everyone will just understand how valuable it is what you just delivered or shown. And it also assumes that we're just so smart that we cannot be bothered in trying to convince everyone. Come on, just take my word for it. It's just so good. So it's important to sell. And this is the second S, very related to what Vaj was saying. And I know what you're thinking. Selling. All right. This guy. Selling is often seen as something dirty, impure, but it is definitely necessary. We're all in the business of selling, and I'm going to change that selling to convincing others if you're not able to read it. This is called non-sales selling. I'm selling you this idea right now, and you guys are hopefully buying it. You're paying me with your time, with your attention. So essentially what I'm defending is you need to design your way into a desirable future. And that design will probably require you convincing a lot of people. You need to convince clients, you need to convince your boss, you need to convince your friends, your family, whatever. So you definitely need a smart design to reach that outcome and find a win-win for both. All right, so let's talk about a few techniques on how you can actually be effective in selling. Traditionally, the ABC was called always be closing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the new ABC, which is attunement, aligning yourself with the buyer. Not just the client. We're talking client, boss, colleague, whatever. Buoyancy, which is the ability to stay afloat, so persisting adversity. And clarity, making a compelling case. So these are the three bases for selling nowadays. Let's talk attunement. A few techniques, and again, keep in mind, we're trying to align with the buyer. Ask yourself, what drives them? You're trying to sell someone something. So you should really start by thinking, what's this person's driver? Why is this person trying or considering buying something from me? Whoop. Next one, strategic mimicry, and this will sound odd. Essentially, when we tend to like people that look somewhat similar to us. This is just nature, and that means that let me ask you this: when someone from a consultancy agency comes and they come with the suits and the tie and the black shoes and whatever, and they come in and they want to talk to you about, I don't know, UI, UX, whatever, you probably won't take them very, very seriously. They might be very good about what they're doing, but at the same time, I'm not feeling it. So you need to be mindful of that, and everyone knows about this. It's the dress for the job or whatever. But it's important. It doesn't mean you have to absolutely mimic someone, but be sure that you don't stand out too much unless it's absolutely deliberate, which I'm going to talk about that. Also, in terms of the way you are operating with that person, look for traits in terms of the way that the person is reacting. Occasionally copy some of those behaviors. Don't do it right after they've done it. We're sensitive about that, so we'll start to, what's happening? Like, am I having a stroke, or I don't know. Don't do that. We are mindful of that. Every now and then, also repeat some key statements that person has said. This helps align, and people feel like they're being understood. Definitely don't overdo, please. The goal is to get closer to that person. Deliberate contrast, and this comes completely against everything I've just said. Kind of. So, yes, you need to mimic or align yourself with the person, but every now and then you have situations in which the desired behavior is just so different from the person, because that person is looking for something else, and you need to detect those opportunities and adjust accordingly. And I'm going to give an example, and this is the way you contrast with the person can go whatever way. You have to be creative about it, and how deep you go in contrast, you also need to be sensitive about it. I'm going to give you an example. Just recently, I was in Berlin for the awards. There were a lot of people there. I remember about one guy there, and this it's a design conference, so pretty much everyone was very stylish, very neat, and there was this guy who had like a fur coat from top to bottom and a big Russian hat. I don't know what to call that. So he completely stood out from everyone in there, and this is the guy I remember. I didn't even speak to the guy, but I remember him. So that's well, it's something. It talks about contrast, how important sometimes deliberately being contrastful is important, but definitely if you're going to do that deliberately and not by accident, because that's bad. Bring out the ambivert. Some of us are extroverts, others introverts, whatever you are. If you're an extrovert, try refraining a bit. Fewer declarations, more questions, listen more, definitely. If you're an introvert, a good exercise that you can do prior to making the sale, you should definitely practice the sale. In a mirror, whatever, just practice it, because it will give you the confidence in delivering. And conversation with the time traveler, this one is a good one. So essentially, imagine when you are going to sell an idea, and depending on the person that you're talking to, you might imagine a conversation with someone that traveled 500 years ago to this precise moment, and start explaining that person what you are trying to sell. This is a very interesting exercise because that person completely lacks all context. If you're going to teach about a TV show, that person does not have the slightest idea of what a TV is. So when you start to do that exercise, you start to challenge your assumptions of understandability of your message. And this is very important. It allows you to adjust the communication for the person you're selling to. Let's say you have a technological project. You are going to sell that to someone who has traditionally worked in real estate. I don't know. It's a big investor, hundreds of millions of dollars. That person knows jack about technology. That's a good person for which to try this exercise, because you'll probably find that your message is wrong for that person. You probably need to adjust a few things. Which takes us to the next one, buoyancy. Persisting adversity. So, and this is a key one. When you're selling something, you need to live as long as you can, as long as you're still trying to make the sale. How do you prepare for the unknown? And this one's a very interesting. A lot of people, when preparing to sell something someone, they start saying to themselves, "You can do it. You can do it." Don't say that. Just say, "Can you do it?" It's very similar, but ask yourself, can you do it? When you say that, your mind shifts, and instead of having a passive attitude towards the problem, you suddenly become engaged, and you start to look for strategies in how to solve that problem. And this might look like bullshit. It's actually not. There have been quite a few studies. One specifically, I won't bother to read that, but showed a performance improvement of 1.5 to 2 times the performance. Next one, 3-to-1 positivity golden ratio. Wow, I'm going to name my kid that. So negative emotions trigger the survival instinct. So frightened people flee, and angry people fight. You don't want to engage that sort of feeling, emotion. You want to appeal for the positive emotions. Once you are engaged with a person with positive emotions, the scope of what's possible for that person just gets broader. People start looking for solutions instead of trying to flee or fight you, right? But this doesn't mean that you should just sugarcoat everything that you're saying, like I'm saying right now. There's a ratio, which is 3-to-1. And this, again, also has been proven. There are quite a few studies about this. And what you have is, for every 3 positive emotions, you should have 1 negative emotion. You can go a bit further, but from the 11th positive emotion, without compensating on the negative, people start to get delusional. So people are lacking the feedback from doing a bad job, so people will keep doing the way they're doing, which is just worse for everyone, suffocating self-improvement. And finally, reject yourself. This is also a good one for preparing, which is, look at what you're selling and ask yourself, why would someone not buy what I'm selling? Enumerate and fix for those soft spots, right? And moving to clarity, this one's a really cool one. Making a compelling case. I'm going to talk about the contrast principle. And the first thing you need to do is compare to what? I'll tell you a story. There was this guy, Russell Reeves, is known for coining the term unique selling proposition. He was coming back from a lunch in New York, and he saw a beggar in the streets with a sign and a jar for coins, and the sign said, "I am blind." The jar was almost empty, and he mentioned to his colleagues, "Hey guys, I think I can significantly improve this guy's performance in terms of earning money just by adding 4 words to his card." And that's what he did. He talked to the guy agreed, and he wrote on the board, and almost instantly people started pouring in money on the jar. And you might ask, what the hell did he write? I want to write that on my back. Very simple. He wrote, "It is springtime, and," which reads, "It is springtime, and I'm blind." This is a lesson in contrast, which is it answers compared to what. As people, we are always comparing everything, and the moment you say that it is springtime and that person is blind, you suddenly relate to that person and understand how different that person's life is from yours. You empathize and you care for that person. Second one, the less frame, and this is a bunch of frames. These are just a few. This one's a no-brainer. Everyone knows less is more, and most of the time this is really true. Having more options, having discussing too many ideas often just dilutes the idea or the main ideas that you are trying to sell. So definitely curate whatever you are trying to sell. Just focus on what's really important. And the reasoning for this is not only just too much in terms of the time that you are spending, but also for the person to actually compare everything. Just think about the last time that you went to a restaurant and you opened the menu, and the menu went like this. All right. Oh, there's another one. All right. Oh, there's another one. Oh, okay. And it keeps going and going and going. What the hell? And you just don't know what to ask because it's just too many options. People get overwhelmed. People don't like this. So really curate your sale. Another one, the label frame. This one's a very interesting. So essentially, this one helps answer that same question, compared to what? There was this experiment that some investigators did, and essentially they had a game in which you had prisoners, who they could collaborate. They weren't really talking to each other, but they could collaborate. If they collaborated and didn't snitch on each other, both would go free. But they had no idea of what the other person was doing. So essentially, you're in a position in which you think, okay, I think the other guy is a nice guy. Yeah, I'm not going to snitch. And the other guy snitches on you, that bastard. So on the other hand, it could go the other way, which is that maybe the person is a good person, and they will act accordingly, and both go out free. And what was found was that the way you name that game just completely changed people's behavior. So on one side, you had a bunch of people playing the Wall Street game, and this was one of the games. And on the other side, you had people playing the community game. I'm sure you can already imagine these guys were the Wall Street guys, and these guys were the community guys. So when people are labeled, when there is a label a label hinting to the desired behavior and goal, people start to adjust, and essentially you are elevating behavior. Finally, the blemish frame. This one, essentially, when you are trying to sell something, always trail with a negative blemish, a small negative trait. Essentially, when you do that, you've explained all the good things about whatever you're saying, but in the end, you give a small catch, but keep in mind, this is a slight issue. And suddenly, you look just so honest about it. Instead of, oh, it's amazing, it's everything, perfect. You should really trail with a problem, but a slight problem. All right, reading material. If you guys want to read more and investigate more about these topics that I'm explaining, you have a bunch of really nice books. 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel. To Sell is Human. This guy, I have 3 books from him. I have a problem. To Sell is Human, about the non-sales selling. Drive, it's about motivation, intrinsic and external motivations, and what drives people. When, the science of perfect timing. And finally, Start with Why by Simon Sinek, which is also on motivation and the way we internalize what is explained to us. All right, finally, and just to conclude on the selling part. Sell, but definitely be ready to be sold. You're so good at what you're doing and you're very confident about it, definitely give it your best to sell it to other people, but keep in mind you're probably working with very smart people. They probably also have very good solutions, so every now and then just give up and allow other people to also give it a try. It's a great opportunity for you to learn. And in the end, definitely, if you're working with a team, the goals are likely aligned, so yeah, we'll probably get there anyway. All right, so in conclusion, solving and selling play a key part in shaping the future. And as designers, we play a central role in that. Because one thing is sure, the future will come, and you can leave it to chance, or you can design it yourself. Thank you.